guess we're doing this then. The administrative capital of Egypt, or New Cairo as some mistakenly call it. New Cairo is already a thing, so I guess this is the newer Cairo. I've been asked so many times what I think about it, and it's always the same answer: terrible mismanagement of resources. And I found a video by an actual professional reviewing the project and saying / confirming everything that I have thought about it, and doing it hilariously too. The video I am talking about is from a channel called Adam Something. I'll link it in the description. I highly recommend watching it because he is allowed to speak more openly than I am, being blessed with freedom of speech, which I lack. Also, this is set in stone now. They've already started moving offices to it as of December 2021, aka last year, and the president changed Cairo's borders to include his new legacy project. Seriously, it was on the news. So it's safe to say that this dystopian landscape is here to stay and will be seen all the way through. Also, if you're wondering what the heck does Ozymandian mean, I'll put it on the screen for you because I didn't know at first either. It is a genius title though, very on point, and it's from a poem which he elaborates on later.
Today's subject is Egypt's new administrative capital, a futuristic metropolis built from scratch by the Egyptian government. We've all heard of big mega projects before, but what makes this one truly stand out is its sheer bigness.
I'll spare you the phallic jokes, but please know I do want to make one really bad right now. This caveman mentality is very prominent here in Egypt. Ooga booga monkey brain sees something big and automatically fires its neurons. If you look at the common people's weddings or shop opening celebrations, you can immediately see that. Strobes, disco balls, and music so goddamn loud that if you walked by the speakers, you feel your chest implode. Not so long ago, I was woken up just before midnight. A nearby wedding was causing my bed to shake with me on it, and I live relatively high up. That's how loud it is. And it went on until almost 2 a.m.
So what does this big, epic project entail? The Middle East's biggest mega cathedral, 2 big mega mosques, one of them Egypt's biggest, the world's biggest skyscraper and 2 dozen more, the Capital Park, twice as big as Central Park, to promote social interactions.
This part pisses me off because look how fucking green it looks. Just look at it. Whoever designed this probably works for the same people that tore down literally any green public space within the city. The cities, plural, all of them. Have y'all seen Luxor's new corniche? It's a fucking joke. Aside from looking barren and ugly, Egypt's south as a whole is a smoldering pit from hell. It needs plants to cool it off and provide shade. It went from this to this in a matter of just a decade or so. Also, what? Social interaction in an NYC style complex?
There's also the world's biggest military headquarters, aka the Octagon.
Yes, it's actually called that. It's basically a parody of the Pentagon. They just had to one-up everybody. Or 3-up in this case, since an octagon has 3 more sides, I guess.
A whole new district for all the Egyptian ministries, a smaller district with all the important institutions, a big area called People's Square.
An area this open will be unbearable. The scale of this place is massive. This render doesn't really show it, but trust me, it's huge. The whole administrative capital is 714 square kilometers in area, or 275.6 square miles if you're a snowflake and use imperial. That is fucking huge. Egypt in its entirety is 1 million square kilometers, and roughly 90% of those 1 million kilometers is uninhabitable desert. With all that in mind, imagine how soul-crushing it would be to walk in this square with the blazing desert sun on you. No shade whatsoever in there that I can see.
With the world's biggest flagpole and 2 theaters, and a big 20-lane road for military parades, plus a monument as big as a whole neighborhood, 2 new parliament buildings, a big new presidential palace, the biggest automated monorail system in the world.
This is probably the worst idea of all the bad ideas in here. For obvious reasons we'll get to later on, but like, just imagine something going at such high speeds as a monorail being run by Egyptians. It's a recipe for disaster. Sooner or later, the lack of maintenance and equipment abuse will get to it and cause a lot of damage in the process. Assuming they even build it up to spec to survive the hot-ass climate. Standard machinery fails really fast in here but we aren't smart enough to do like they do in the Arab Gulf countries and buy shit that is specifically designed to operate in scorched earth conditions like we have here. And yes, I am aware that monorails can go at normal speeds, but seeing how big and extra everything is, I just have a feeling they gonna run it fast. Just a feeling.
And to top it all off, an American-style suburb. So this is Egypt's new administrative capital in a nutshell. Wait, what's that?
This is where my man Adam finishes the sarcasm and starts talking for real, from a technical and objective standpoint.
This project is pointless at best and incredibly harmful at worst. But it's big. What? The sheer size and scope of a project alone does not make it good?
I'm a firm believer more is not necessarily always better.
But big buildings. Look at how big they are. Bigly big. They're so big. Huh? Oh no, what is this? Oh no.
POV, I'm trying to make sense of Egypt.
So Egypt's new administrative capital. It is a truly enormous undertaking by the Egyptian government, its scale only surpassed by its sheer stupidity. When discussing this project, we have to ask ourselves, what is wrong with a dictator building a colossal vanity project in the desert from scratch in a country where the minimum wage is $127 per month?
The video honestly could just end here. This is exactly why it's a horrible idea. Also, that minimum wage is only accounting for official jobs, and it's the minimum only by factor of being the lowest there has been so far. Not because a certain law has mandated a minimum boundary or whatever. There is no such law to my knowledge, and if there was, clearly it's only theoretical to the point we never hear about it.
Let's find out. The new administrative capital was already a dumb idea, but with a few bold steps they've managed to reach unprecedented levels of idiocy, where, in my opinion, they have managed to surpass even Dubai. I'm not exaggerating. As the name shows, the project itself is meant to create an all-new administrative center for the Egyptian government, moving them out of central Cairo. This isn't the first of such projects. The new administrative capital is right next to New Cairo City, built by the previous dictator, which is a 500 square kilometer gentrified car-centric urban hellscape. So Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took a look at New Cairo City and thought, yeah, we can build something bigger than that. And so the new administrative capital was born.
There's a lot of compensation going on here, and I mean a lot.
So let's go over the major parts of this project to explain why exactly they're stupid, or in this case, outright evil. First, the obvious stuff. Both the world's tallest flagpole and the world's tallest skyscraper, because fuck it, why not? The flagpole is of course nothing more than nationalistic dick-waving. As for the skyscraper, if you've been watching my content before, you know why it's a bad idea, especially in the desert. To reiterate, there's just no good reason to build skyscrapers. The higher you build, the more engineering problems you have to solve, and the more expensive things get. Even if you're after the largest possible floor space, you're still better off with mid-rises.
Exactly. Egypt entirely has no real reason to expand vertically. We have nothing but space. Cairo, Alexandria, other big cities, they don't need to be the ugly high-rise dystopias that they are. But here we are, I guess. Let's just copy the West without even seeing why they do what they do, or if we even need to do it. Also, glass buildings in a desert sounds like a shit idea. The sun is gonna reflect off that glass and fry whatever it lands on, and sand, which is literally all around, and there's sandstorms frequently, will mean that these windows will need to be constantly cleaned and the glass sheets replaced frequently, which doesn't sound economically practical.
Otherwise, skyscrapers waste a ton of energy by virtue of being giant hunks of glass and steel. Their price per square meter is significantly higher than mid-rises, and they alienate people by complicating access to public spaces such as parks and so on. Now, there are some edge cases where you have no choice but to build skyscrapers on very small footprints and very close to each other because you simply have no available space. But, as you can see, for the new administrative capital, space isn't really an issue by virtue of it being out in the open desert. Dictators really do love building big dumb things for no reason. Germania is a good example, which was Hitler's renewal plan for Berlin that was mostly about redoing the city center with overly large buildings. One of them was a triumphal arch seen in the middle, which was supposed to be so large the Paris Arc de Triomphe would have fit under it. Hitler also envisioned a square, the Grand Plaza, which was supposed to be 350,000 square meters.
That's kind of funny because some people here actually like Hitler since they hate the Jewish. So it really has come full circle that the leadership is walking in his footsteps without even knowing.
Today's dictators prefer skyscrapers though, because that's what's trendy nowadays. Hence the new administrative capital containing 24 of them, one of which is to be the world's tallest as mentioned. Between those skyscrapers and what appears to be two 10-lane urban freeways lies the Capitol Park, now called the Green River Park, the purpose of which is
providing shade and encouraging social activities.
Parks are not even part of our culture. We don't have them here. Besides, the admin city looks like it will only house the elite of the elite which I doubt would even fill one of those big-ass skyscrapers they're building, so there is absolutely no need to make such a giant space to promote social activity. Also, why the fuck does this tiny area need 10-lane highways? The actual highways don't have that many lanes in many areas, and I doubt this hellhole will have enough traffic to justify that by any means.
Corporate bullet points aside, the real purpose of this park is to be 6 times the size of Central Park. That's it.
Exactly, like pretty much everything else in this project.
And considering you're creating a 2,509 hectare lawn in the middle of the desert, the water consumption of this thing will be beyond belief, which I'm sure will do wonders for stability in the region. Ethiopia's casus belli for launching a water war will be Egyptians watering their lawn.
Yeah, that is a good point actually. And also, let me just add, I doubt there will be a reliable circulation system for that, to ensure whatever doesn't evaporate in the desert sun ends up back in the system somehow and not just completely wasted.
However, skyscrapers, flagpoles, and disturbingly large parks are the least of our worries here, if you can believe that. Let's take a look at the residential areas envisioned in the project. In terms of urbanism, they are complete bonkers. The most obvious problem is that most areas are completely car-centric. That means blocks of residential buildings divided by large roads and 6 to 8 lane arterial roads with minimal to no public transit. The worst offender might be La Vista City here, which is an American-style suburb in the desert next to a freeway bordered by an arterial road. Now, there are plenty of videos out there detailing why American suburbs are the worst thing you can build. For now, let's just say they isolate people socially, force you to be car-dependent, services and amenities are far away, it's near impossible to have good public transit due to low density, it's much more expensive to drag out utilities to each house, and so on. Long story short, American suburbs are an urbanism nightmare.
This was never about efficiency. It's just an abomination knockoff of every Western city trope. Skyscrapers? We got the biggest. Parks? We got the biggest. Flagpoles? What are the odds? We also have the biggest. Pentagon? Suck my cocktagon, bitch!
Back to Egypt, there's the R5 residential area, a district with fake French architecture.
Let's just copy the West without even seeing why they do what they do, or if we even need to do it.
By the way, in the new administrative capital, the only meaningful public transit will be a high-speed rail line, and that's good, but they're also building a monorail line because, of course, they are. This one will cost $4.5 billion.
$4.5 billion on the monorail alone. Funny, isn't it? The country is starving, and the currency is crashing. All the while, this is being built to fulfill one man's wet dreams of grandeur. He even went on record saying it, by the way. No one is more concerned about the people than us. We are a country that is starving. Us here being the government and the ruling class.
But you already have the metro, it's right there, why not just extend that? Why create a whole new system which has significantly lower capacity than a metro line? This whole new standalone rich people's transportation, neatly separated from public transit for the poors. What a strange coincidence, huh?
Exactly, it's there only to emphasize the gap between the haves and the have-nots. It's not even needed, honestly, you know, everyone who's gonna be able to afford to live there has a car. Cars, even, they do not need public transport. This is just an added touch to the knockoff metropolis to really sell it. You know? Because why not? It's just a little cherry on top.
Aside from the monorail, the whole new administrative capital is of course completely car-centric. Here we have a render of the R3 residential area, which looks like something a 6-year-old would build in SimCity 3000 with the money cheat on. It's all urban freeways. After all, public transit is for the unwashed masses, not the elite. Yes, if you thought all this was being built for the ordinary Egyptian,
you fucking donkey!
No, this is in no way for the common people. It was literally marketed as the opposite. They, deadass, had an advertisement leaning on classism to promote this as the rich people residence. They took the ad down quickly after backlash, as far as I know. I mean, we all already knew it, it's fucking obvious, but this just adds insult to injury that they would say it publicly and even use it to promote their project.
According to this Reuters article, some 22 million Egyptians live in slums to this day, which is a quarter of the country's entire population. Is anything being done to better their situation? In 4 years, the government managed to relocate 750,000 people from slums to social housing. At this rate, assuming the slums population won't grow, clearing all of them will take 117 years. Also, low-income families from slums are often relocated into car-centric areas, which severely restrict their mobility. These areas are also heavily segregated from higher-income neighborhoods and risk becoming slums all over again.
It was not really a solution. It was just so the government could say, well, we did do something about it. Classism and social segregation is very real and very apparent in Cairo. You see it everywhere here, but especially in Cairo.
The issue here is of course the Egyptian government's socio-economic priorities, best illustrated by this picture of an urban freeway being built in Cairo, approximately 1 meter away from people's windows.
While we're talking about urban freeways, our beloved leader has been building bridges non-stop everywhere. If you Google it, you get results saying it's up to 40, and that result is from 2020. They went as far as raising a beach in Alexandria to build a fucking bridge. A bridge by the sea. Who is that gonna help? Surely not the people who visit the country and pay hard currency to see the view, or the locals who like the beach being their one little fun thing they do in their miserable Egyptian life. I mean, sure, the bridges do help traffic some, but is it worth it? Beaches are a core part of Alexandria's identity as a city. They call it the Bride of the Mediterranean Sea. For fuck's sake, I guess she is the bridge of the Mediterranean now. Besides, traffic is not even Alexandria's biggest issue. Why not do something about the rainwater flooding the streets, destroying infrastructure and property every single goddamn winter instead? I'm getting carried away. Let's get back to Cairo.
Otherwise, a very telling example is the fate of the so-called Maspero Triangle, which is a slum area not far from Tahrir Square in central Cairo, home to some 18,000 people. In the 90s, under the previous dictator, the authorities forbade doing any repair work on the houses under threat of heavy fines. Soon enough, buildings started collapsing, often with their inhabitants inside, thus forced evictions began due to quote-unquote unsafe conditions.
This exact same strategy is used nowadays too. Until recently, all construction work was heavily restricted so that the military-owned companies could monopolize it for a while and make some sweet cash.
In the end, Egypt of course ended up with a different dictator who decided to finish the job and had the entire area bulldozed. 18,000 people were forcibly evicted so that a gentrified high-rise area can be built there. Hashtag guess the poor.
And this is not the only area that had mass forced evictions, by the way. There are so many more, and not just in Cairo. Also to clear the way for one joke project or another.
And the new administrative capital is not much different in terms of social value. All this is being built not for the ordinary person, but for the ruling class and their allies. It is, in large part, meant to solidify the dictatorship by insulating the leadership from common people. It's significantly harder to overthrow your government when the parliament is 12 hours away on foot in the desert and you have to break through 20 military checkpoints to get there.
That is also a very good point, actually. I've never thought about that before. But really, if it does come to that, it's gonna be inevitable. If Egyptians decided to get up and flip the table, you're not gonna be able to stop them. And the leadership knows that. It's why they are paranoid AF about anyone who looks like they're trying to put together a movement, or trying to spy on them, or whatever else. In their own way, of course, which only makes things worse.
The other half of the story is, of course, money. Within the company responsible for the project, the military happens to be a majority shareholder. That company is also responsible for selling and operating all that ultra-expensive property left empty by moving the government to the district they're building. The Egyptian military really is a state within a state.
As I mentioned just a second ago. Also, most cities' governors are military folk as well. The military are the elite of the elite here. No matter how high up you climb as a civil person, you're always gonna be below the army in terms of status, wealth, and power. And you can vanish in an instant if they decided they don't like you anymore.
They are the true Egyptian ruling class. The ultimate symbol of this is the most ludicrous element of the project, the octagon. The octagon is the Egyptian military's new headquarters. In terms of military power, Egypt is on par with Italy, but apparently they need an HQ 8 times the size of the Pentagon, which makes it, you guessed it, the largest in the world. But
at this point, our army does more business than army stuff. I bet if a war started on Egypt right now, we would lose embarrassingly hard. And while that would be tragic, I honestly would almost find it funny at this point, because fuck it, why not? At least they'd get what they deserve.
But the octagon is more than just a military headquarters. Around this abomination, there are housing complexes, public services, amenities, and so on, making the octagon a city within a city. And this is deliberate, of course. What we have here is a brand new castle for the Egyptian military ruling class. So in the new administrative capital, we have district for the Egyptian upper class, the political class, a castle for the military ruling class, a whole bunch of world's largest bullshit projects, and a new palace for the dictator, all neatly separated from the riffraff. Meanwhile, Cairo's problems are numerous and severe. Aside from the aforementioned slums and general poverty, urban planning in Cairo is either non-existent or beyond insane. According to TomTom, it is the 30th most congested city on the planet. No wonder. Traffic management as a concept doesn't exist in Cairo. Traffic rules are a suggestion and nobody will check compliance. Crossing the road as a pedestrian is an incredibly risky maneuver, and not looking around beforehand is practically suicide.
I've mentioned before in almost all of my videos in which I talked about Egypt. Traffic is a disaster here. People in America complaining about their traffic congestions, their neat line of cars, and they call that a congestion.
Also, did you know that Cairo, the 7th largest metro area on the planet, barely operates any traffic lights? Vehicle safety is a foreign concept. On the picture you can see an old 5-seater Soviet car packed absolutely full with children, because this is a school bus. Yep.
And cars are not regulated or mandated to be road safe. The rule here is basically, if it starts and moves, it's good to go. Also, car parts are taxed up to 300% when imported, and obviously we don't make cars here, we just assemble them locally. A second-hand, beat-up piece of shit Toyota from the early 2000s here would cost you around the same as a brand new in America or Europe or wherever the fuck else really, because who the hell taxes 300% anyway on anything? People like to bitch about taxes in the first world, and I kinda get it, but at least you get something in return for it. Here we pay the same and probably more and get nothing. Be grateful.
According to the WHO, every year approximately 12,000 Egyptians die in road accidents, a number both insane and unsurprising.
I'm assuming this is based off the official numbers from the government, which I wouldn't trust. Rule of thumb here, whatever number comes from the government or any official statistic, just double it, give or take a little bit, and then you get a rough idea of the actual situation.
They gave them the propaganda number.
Meanwhile, public transit is woefully underdeveloped. For example, the Greater Cairo area of 20.9 million people is currently served by 2.5 metro lines. In contrast, the Paris metro area of 15 million people is served by 16 metro lines and 5 major suburban rail lines. There are some tram lines in Cairo, but the ones in the center were demolished long ago, and what remains is more of a rolling museum than a transit system. Beyond these, there's a municipal bus system that exists, and below that, the most crucial part of Cairo's public transit, minibuses.
Oh, yeah. Minibuses and microbus as we call them. These are what a bus would do in a first world country, but with Egyptian chaos integrated into it. They have certain routes that cover most general areas, and before you hop on one at the stop or on its way, you have to ask the driver where he's headed to see if it's the right ride for you. You can use hand signals if you're really being efficient. Each city has hand signs for each destination district, and you just wave those out to the bus as it approaches. If the driver is going to wherever you're signaling for, he's gonna pull over and you hop on. For more specific destinations, you have tuk-tuks, which is this thing I have in my intro. They are basically small, more affordable taxis. No regular Egyptian can spare 30 to 50 Egyptian pounds for a taxi ride every single time they want to go somewhere, but 5 for a tuk-tuk sounds pretty reasonable.
As you can see, this is not a serious public transit system, more like a half-baked, haphazard mess that kinda sorta functions because it has to, just like the city of Cairo as a whole.
And Egypt altogether as a country, honest to God, have no fucking clue how this is still going. It is deteriorating rapidly and falling apart, and despite the imminent collapse that could happen any minute now, I can't help but be amazed at the people and the country for still kinda standing, despite everything. It just shows the potential that we are wasting if we can survive for so long in unhuman conditions. Imagine what could be if we had proper leadership. That doesn't mean I like the people, but I have to give it to them. They survive. We're all like cockroaches, hard to kill, and hardly anybody cares for us.
And the leadership does not care. Instead, they're spending money on the aforementioned monorail between the new administrative capital and East Cairo, costing $4.5 billion. Imagine what could have been done inside Cairo for that kind of money. But instead, they opted for a shiny gadget bomb bullshit project because spending money on Cairo would serve the poor, while the monorail will serve the upper classes.
You gotta get your priorities right. Who cares about the common people? It's not like they're your milk cow and the essence of your livelihood. As a ruler, who needs to have people to rule? Fuck those guys.
Other parts of this project are just further insult to injury. The Unknown Soldier Monument is just a handout to military-adjacent real estate companies. At the end of the day, urbanism is more than just building some big, shiny buildings. It's the built environment we humans are meant to inhabit. A building on its own is just a heap of bricks, metal and concrete. Its intended purpose, the kind of people it will serve, its location, accessibility, those are what make a building worth talking about.
Our beloved leader has literally said before, when questioned about one of his projects, we don't have time to do benefit studies. We just do things.
Sure, the new administrative capital looks impressive, lots of big buildings, big buildings, but that alone tells us nothing about what it really is. A dictator's bullshit vanity project at the expense of tens of millions who are forced to live in poverty for decades to come. But it didn't have to be this way. Egyptian authorities could have put their traffic management in order, create a workable municipal bus system, build new metro lines, more affordable housing, and they could have improved Cairo's chaotic urban planning. Instead, they chose to build a $40 billion monument to hubris and sociopathy.
The problem isn't lack of resources. It never was. Egypt is not a poor country, believe it or not. It's just that its riches are grossly unevenly distributed and handled incredibly poorly and selfishly by a select few groups and individuals. At the end of the day, it all comes down to not what you have, but what you do with it. A loser can squander all the capital in the world, while a smart person can make a great life out of it. It all starts and ends here, in the brain.
Kids stab, girls shoot, boys punch, grown-ups fight with their heads. That's where the real battle is. Up here, in the grave.
Just look at it. This is disturbingly luxurious. It is so out of place being so close to unimaginable, unfathomable poverty. It is only 20 kilometers away from a district that is literally called Garbage City. You can look it up. Type in Cairo Garbage City. It's gonna show up. And it's all pointless. This serves no one. The rich don't need it and the poor can't have it. And it's not even fully constructed yet. They are still going. Despite everything and the economical collapse that is looming over this godforsaken land, they are still persisting. And not out of their own pockets, obviously. It's hard to believe there is even anything left to steal anymore. Why? Why? Well, that's a pointless question. We all know why. I've avoided talking about this for so long because I don't feel exactly safe directly criticizing the system, but since it's all on Adam's tongue, not mine, technically it should be fine. It's also very depressing to me to be faced with the reality of Egypt. Oh, and by the way, I'm not the only one who feels this way, not by a long shot. Many Egyptians who have any gray matter left in their skulls think the same. You can see some of these people in the comments on Adam's original video. I encourage you to go watch the full thing and check the comments while you're at it. I believe these people commenting there are the more civilized / educated people, judging by the fact they are watching a video criticizing the project in English and using decent English themselves in the comments. If you turn away from YouTube, however, and look at other social media, Facebook and Twitter, the less educated folks show up. The idiots who are cheering for this, the ooga booga mentality, big is good, blindly copy others and one-up them at it, look rich and modern and hip, even if you're actually one emergency away from selling your kidneys or your children. You know, following the looks above all motto that I've talked about countless times at this point. I'm not even gonna bother showing any of that. The video is already long enough, and I honestly don't have the energy for any more of this right now. Plus, it's not the purpose of the video. There's the administrative capital video you all wanted. I listen to my viewers. I love you all. If you have more suggestions or questions, please let me know. Join a Discord server if you want to talk to me personally and some of my viewers. Do all the YouTube stuff, like, share, whatever. Please just make this worth it. Let's hope I don't get into trouble for making this.
I'll leave you with a poem. This one is titled Ozymandias by Percy B. Shelley. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, 2 vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
One last thing, so while editing this, I couldn't help but picture the scenery from a game called Spec Ops: The Line. It's set in a post-apocalypse Dubai, and this poem is screaming the same vibes. The game itself is not exactly relevant to this video, but the environment and atmosphere are, and they are truly something else. Alright, take care.